This is my subscriber trail. It's a mountain biking flow trail primarily built by me, but designed by you, the viewers. Each week, I present you with 2 options for what we could build next, and I let you decide between them. So far, so good. I'm stoked with how the trail is turning out, and last week, you guys got to choose between a bank drop and a roller to gap. Well, 38% of you went with the roller to gap, and 62% voted banked drop. So this week we are building the trail's first wooden feature using only cedar wood. But before we get started, let me just say a huge thank you to U-Haul for sponsoring another build on this trail. Now, to get started, I needed to clear out the area so I could take some measurements. That way, I had a rough idea of what I was going to need when I went to collect wood. Okay, so what we're gonna do right now is just take some measurements so I can get some general dimensions of what this thing's gonna be. What I'm doing here is laying out my measuring tape to mimic what the drop will look like. This way I can visualize it better and make proper decisions on its size. Once I get the overall length and general shape down, I can sketch it out and start plotting points where my support posts will go. Each dot represents a support post, and the lines in between them represent the logs that will hold the decking. This will just help me whenever we're processing the cedar over there, and I don't have, I'm not just relying on my memory or just cutting up the cedar all willy-nilly and wasting it, you know. So now we know what we're doing. So let's go process some cedar, and hopefully it doesn't take all day to do that. Now I play heavy metal music because of the chainsaw, and I think it's kind of funny, but in reality, I searched for 2 hours to find only dead cedar trees for this project. So don't let my heavy metal music confuse you. But once I assembled a decent amount of logs, I headed back to the project area and started peeling off the bark. Whew, we made it. Thank God for side-by-sides. Made this a million times easier. So some of you might be thinking, why in the world would you peel all of this bark off? What's the point? Mainly for 2 reasons. You are trying to open up the wood, the grains, so that this thing can air out much faster. Reason number 2 would be bugs. Bugs like to burrow under this bark because it's pretty loose, and they can kind of just make their little homes in there. See all these little weird designs? Those are little bug trails that they were crawling around underneath the bark. If you take this bark off, then the bugs can't make their homes there. After getting all the bark stripped off, it was time to start lining up the drop. That'll be the start of one. The first section was going to be 12 feet long, 3 foot wide, and straight. All I really had to do was find out where I wanted the beginning to be, line up my logs, and start digging some holes for the support posts. Now we dig.
Don't wanna play games out with the moves, don't wanna meditate, girl, with you it's hard. Fill in the blanks, text me back, throw me a kiss instead of them tricks. Don't make it hard. I wanna celebrate, you know. I don't wanna push and pull, girl, come on, follow me once. Oh, I don't play rough. You know where you got me around your little pinky, and nothing to ask nothing. Damn, this crush is hard.
Oh, I think our first rung is done here. Now, I had only gotten enough wood to finish this first section, so I needed to go gather and process the rest of the wood for our project. I'll speed all this up, but no, this took me an entire day in July, summer, humid heat, so this was no easy task.
Okay, so right now I think I'm gonna actually go to the end of our feature, get our post set there, make sure I've got everything set up where I want it to end at, and then I'll just work my way back. So we've got the start where I want it, and I'm gonna get the ending where I want it, and then everything in between can just adjust to that.
To make sure I have a perfect turn radius, I simply tie a string to a shovel and move the shovel around until I can hold my string in one spot and have it meet at the top and bottom posts. Now, this does take a bit of time, but it's well worth it to know your turn will end up perfect. From here, I can mark out where my inner posts will go, and then we can start digging and setting those.
Holy crap. Wow. It's hot. And that was hard. Okay, so we've got all of our post holes dug. We've got all of our posts in the holes. Now we need to stabilize them. So for that, I went and grabbed us some inch minus rock right here. And we're gonna actually pack in just the inner side first because I wanna get the height of them all measured out and done and cut. So what we'll do is we'll just take our level here and we'll measure off of this first part right there, and we'll just measure it all the way to the very end of these because the inner side is gonna stay the same height or the same level anyway. This outer edge is gonna slowly come up as we get towards the end because I want it to start to bank as we come out. So we're gonna get this first inner set of posts stabilized, and then we'll move on to the outside.
With everything put together and the deck boards on, all that was left to do was shape a landing. Now, this project would have been coming up on 2 weeks if I did this by hand, so we're gonna open Pandora's box and break out the skid steer. After getting the landing knocked out in under an hour, I was able to also add in a little roller before the feature so it had a bit more flow and gave us more speed if we needed it. Once I was done with that, it was finally time to ride this thing. Now, Endo was sitting it no problem.
Whoa!
Send it! Send it! Send it!
Oh! Oh my God! That was insane!
As for me, I gotta admit, I was a bit hesitant. This is the biggest drop on my property now, and that means I haven't sent anything bigger than this because I have only progressed on my property.
Yeah! Oh, yeah! Yes! 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 Yeah! That! Yes!
Now that I knew I could ride it, I got Endo back out with me, and let me tell you, this dog goes full send.
Let's end it again? Let's do it, bub.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
We are approaching that time to finally vote on what comes next after the bank drop. But before we do, I have to say a huge thank you to U-Haul for supporting me building this. I couldn't have done it without them, and on top of them supporting me, they also want to give you guys a 15% discount for anything on their site, just for watching the channel. I gotta say, I have to recommend the Eno or Eno 120, however you say it. I've put together at least 5 bike racks in the last several years, and I've never assembled a bike rack as fast as I did this one. It literally took me under 5 minutes.
And we're done.
On top of that, this is by far the easiest bike rack I've had for putting on and taking off my bike. It doesn't touch your bike frame, doesn't hit my tailgate, and after casting your vote, head on over to uhaul.com, browse their huge selection of bike racks, and then use the code BACKYARD to get yourself 15% off. Okay, it's finally time. This week, I enlisted Dave to help me come up with 2 options. What we decided on for option 1 was a boner log. This is a large log placed in the ground that shoots straight out, making for a really fun gap jump. What we decided on for option 2 would be a big shark fin that hits up to the right. This essentially is a turned jump that gaps into a turned landing. So option 1 is the boner log and option 2 is the big shark fin. Both options would be super fun to have after the bank drop, so I'm game for either. Head on over to my website to vote via this link or the one in my description. Last time I got a lot of traffic on the site all at once, so it took a while for the voting page to load. So my apologies ahead of time, I'm working on a different solution for this. Anyway, let me say a huge thank you to my patrons for the support this month. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. And thank you for watching. Let's build some more stuff next week, and I'll see you then.